Good morning, everybody. Welcome into Coffee Break, presented by Bathfitter on this Wednesday. Good morning. We've got DMAC and Mike Evans is going to join us here in just a quick second. But DMAC, how are you? How was your night last night? What a crazy evening.
Good. I'm just kind of getting up, to be quite honest with you. I mean, it was a late one, that's for sure.
I know. I fell asleep, so I didn't even get to see the last of the Avs games. Obviously, saw the highlight, but yeah, we'll get into all of it because it's exciting stuff. But we will bring in Mike Evans. Good morning to everybody in the comments already. We love seeing you guys and having you hang out. But Mike, how are you today?
I'm well. How are you guys doing? Coming from the luxurious studios here at the Fan. This is nice.
I know. We're happy to have you, but let's get into a team clinched the playoff. We had one disappointing team and one team that did its job last night. So we're going to start with the positives here when it comes to the Colorado Avalanche. They obviously clinched a playoff spot. A big win. One I was expecting to be a little bit more dominant because it obviously goes into overtime, but still, you get the win, you're happy, you move on, you face them again tomorrow, Thursday. But Mike, what was your biggest takeaway from the game last night? And it was a late one, so I don't even know if you stayed up for it because you got to be up so early.
Yeah, I got all the important parts after it was over. I think the biggest thing, first of all, congratulations to Nathan MacKinnon for reaching the 100-point mark, which is even though the NHL has picked up its scoring over the last few years, that 100-point plateau is still something that's pretty special, as evidenced by the fact that he's the first guy to do it since Joe Sakic did 15, 16 years ago. So a great milestone for him. Still waiting for Mikko to get to number 50. That's going to happen. But I think the biggest takeaway is I think there's this perception out there that this has been a real rough and tumble season for the Avs, full of starts and stops and a real roller coaster. Do you realize the Avalanche since January 14th, we're talking about a solid 2.5 months of hockey, have the second best record in the NHL. So this is not a team that has backed its way into the number one spot in the Central Division now. This is a team that's gone out and played really good hockey despite some of the issues that they've dealt with this year, which I think just overall just speaks again to what a great team this is and how this is a team that as they get ready for the playoffs, we can trust this team.
I'm with you. D-Mac?
Mike wants to paint a picture that is filled with half-truths right there. So certainly they've been tremendous since January. But let's not forget the fact that they had lost to 5 straight playoff teams while wiping the floor with teams that weren't so good. Listen, I believe in the Avalanche, and I think the win last night was, showed a lot of guts, okay? But while I'm giving them equal amounts of credit to Mike, I just think I'm giving them a little bit more credit for the hard work that's gone into it and the significant job that Jared Bednar has done, not only juggling the lineups that doesn't go without thought, a lot of thought, but also getting his guys to rebound after playing poorly. And while they've had a game here or a game there, he always able to sort of straighten them out with the right tone or message, whatever that might be. And that is certainly something that was devastatingly disappointing on the other side of the ledger with Michael Malone last night. So I give, similar to Mike, the Avalanche loads of credit. And they are going to be a nightmare to face in the playoffs for anybody. And what they've done is remarkable. But it didn't come without a lot of effort and thought and work. So I just don't want to just quickly say, well, this was always going to happen, because I think that sells them short.
Well,
But it also is the experience. Oh, sorry, Mike. I didn't mean to cut you off. It's the experience of you've been here.
Yeah, and yeah, DMAC, don't take what I'm saying as just blowing this all off. The whole process to get here, it takes an exceptional amount of work, good coaching, great leadership, the tone set by the players, especially guys like MacKinnon and Rantanen, who've kind of been the constants throughout all this with guys in and out of the lineup. I'm not glossing over all that, but what I am saying though is that it is a testament to what this team's standard is and how they go about to live up to that standard. And I know we're gonna have. I can already tell where this coffee break is going. We're going to be having a debate about coaches and their role in getting teams ready to play. Look, I'm completely in agreement with you that when it comes to juggling lines, X's and O's, strategies, who the coach is matters. But when it comes to being ready to go out and play most nights, when it comes to motivation, when it comes to hunger, when it comes to putting aside the complacency that can easily envelop a team that has won the Stanley Cup, that comes from the players. It always has to come from the players. If you think that a bunch of millionaires, professionals, men who play this sport as their livelihood can only go out and play at a high level because their coach tells them to or gives them some fiery speech, that's a bunch of BS, quite frankly, and it's an insult to the players themselves. So I give a lot of credit to Bednar for the way that he has pushed the right buttons from a strategic standpoint. But make no mistake, who the Avalanche are and why they are what they are is because of the leadership that they get from their players. No ifs, ands, or buts.
I'm with Mike on that one. I think these are grown men who are getting paid a lot of money who love the sport that they play. It's on them. It's not on a coach. Like, your coach there puts a game plan, like, is there to help you and not necessarily be like your 100% and guide you. Like, these are grown men. These aren't little league players by any means, D-Mac.
You have to buy into what the coaches and the organization is putting forward. The Avalanche players have bought in. They're led by Jared Bednar. What we saw last night, and I am not James Marilat. I am not a Michael Malone hater. I have defended Michael Malone more times than not. I said yesterday on Coffee Break, the Nuggets are the one who knocks. They are the danger. That was humiliating last night. And I have to look at the fact that for whatever reason, those players were not bought into what was going on. With a chance to grab history for an organization, they fell pitifully flat. For what the Avalanche have done, it was about clinching a playoff spot, which I get it. I get it, what they've done since January. But with the games lost, the man lost with injury over this season, that was just not a given. And there are playoff. Look at Calgary or Nashville, these other teams that we thought were going to be pretty good, and they're just absolute disasters seemingly overnight. Listen, this can fall apart quickly too. Now, it is taking a unbelievable season by Nathan MacKinnon, okay? Clearly the MVP of this team, clearly one of the top 2-3 players in the entire league. Not Cale Makar this year. It's Nathan MacKinnon. And second is Mikko Rantanen, not Cale Makar, okay? Nothing to rip on Cale Makar. Michael, I'll give you some credit on this, all right? I do think Malone has got to take some sort of blame for what happened. But whatever he's trying to get them to buy into, they didn't. I can't believe I'm going to say this. Nikola Jokic has got to be better as a leader. And I mean, that was pathetic. He was sloppy with the ball, 8 turnovers, minus 21 on the court. And just like, where is the drive? I mean, were you really that set off kilter by Kendrick Perkins that you've wilted? Do you know in the last 15 games, the Nuggets are 7-8 with the MVP? I mean, listen, I love Jokic, and I do think he deserves the MVP. But I am not going to hate on anybody who says he doesn't after last night. Because there was another showdown between the Sixers and the Celtics, and Embiid scored 52 and led his team to a 2-point victory. Jokic has 3 games off, and you pathetically let your team wilt to the Houston Rockets, who the best thing they have going for him is trying to get Victor Wembanyama with the number 1 overall pick. That was sad. And Michael Malone deserves heat. So does Nikola Jokic. The only guy who gets to escape, I guess, is Jamal Murray, who has an injury and only played 9 minutes.
Yeah, Rachel, I get what he's saying. I get what you're saying about the whole buy-in thing. But quite honestly, when it comes to last night's performance, you, Rachel, D-Mac, or I could have been coaching the Nuggets last night, and there should have been no problem with motivation. So this notion that they have to buy into something, at least in this case, I don't buy it, because quite frankly, who the hell are the Denver Nuggets? I'm talking about the players. Who the hell are they to think that they have arrived at some point where they can go in and just go through the motions the final week of the season thinking that they can flip the switch come playoff time. Who the heck are they to think that? What have they accomplished that gives them any reason to approach these games with the kind of arrogance, quite frankly, that I saw yesterday? That's arrogance. That's arrogance. That's arrogance. That's thinking, hey, we're like all these other contending teams around the NBA. We can take nights off. We can mail games in. We're going to be fine come playoff time. Who the heck are they to think that they can do that? So that's why I'm not absolving Michael Malone of blame in this, but to me, this falls squarely on the players. If you can't be motivated, self-motivated, to go out and make history for your franchise on a night like last night, whew, there's red flags popping up all over the place with this group.
Last night showed me a team that's clearly been reading too many good things about themselves and are clearly relying on their MVP in Nikola Jokic to say, hey, like you said, arrogance. We got this. This is like the worst team in the NBA in the Houston Rockets. Everything is going to be fine. They've been reading too much about how good they are. They needed a slap in the face, and I actually think it might turn out to be a positive thing. Not for Nikola Jokic because he probably did lose the MVP, but I'd rather them get the smack in the face right now than round one of the playoffs.
Well, right now, I don't know if they care. That's the biggest problem I have with it, and that's disturbing. I don't know if they care. I think the Avalanche care. Okay, Mikko Rantanen fell short of his 50th goal, but look what he did. 8 shots on net, aggressive play, a couple of assists, laying out left and right. I mean, he'll get his 50th, and you never know if things break his way. Maybe 55, that'd be nice. You play the Sharks again, you play the Ducks. Listen, the one thing you have to face in hockey, even though you're a dominant team and you play like it, as the Avs did, you can run into a hot goaltender. You don't have that in basketball. When you just fall so short, it's just on you, okay? I understand the other team's trying and all, and they're all NBA players. But it's just like so bizarre that in hockey, one player, a hot goalie, can just sort of negate everything. That isn't the true in basketball. Collectively, you're all in or you're not. And there is just no excuse against the worst team in the NBA, guys. Not the best team, not a contending team, the literal worst team in the NBA. Now, I know Jake Shapiro wants to give some flowers out here because he points out the Rockets have also beaten good teams. I was a little surprised by my guy Jake basically making excuses left and right, like, well, the Bucks lost, the Sixers lost, the Celtics lost, like as if Houston is some sort of, giant killing machine. They got 20 wins, guys. They're terrible. They are terrible, okay? I think UConn would only lose by 30 to them. That's how bad they are. So save me all that stuff and embrace the moment. Where's your passion bucket, as Dan Patrick would say, towards being a champion and doing something that never happened before? Now you got to play the Suns on national TV. Well, now you got to play Jokic, I think, unless you're truly gutless and you think that this is the answer. I don't care if you finish the first or second seed. Not really. I don't know if it matters that much. But where is your level of competitiveness and desire?
I was waiting.
Let me make a key distinction here, and this is going to come across like I'm defending the Nuggets. I'm not, but I am bringing up something that has to be talked about. The differences between the NHL and the NBA. The NHL, they tend to approach the 82-game season with a commitment, a level of professionalism that, I'm sorry, just doesn't exist in the NBA. More and more in the NBA, teams are taking nights off. They're taking weeks off. There just isn't that kind of a commitment to the season like you see in the NHL. Just look at the new collective bargaining agreement. Some of the new provisions that are in this collective bargaining agreement in the NBA, which is just a blatant attempt to try to get these players to be more engaged during the course of the regular season. And every single contending team out there, I can find a bunch of head-scratching losses, large stretches of indifferent play. I'm not condoning the Nuggets, but at least for most of the season, they rose above what is going on all around the NBA. We tend to look at the Nuggets and focus in on the Nuggets, but if you do pull back and take a more 38,000-foot view of the NBA, this is going on all over the place. You mentioned the Celtics, D-Mac. They're 1 week removed from going on the road, like the Nuggets, and losing by 20 in a game that wasn't even that close to the Washington Wizards. Face it, teams in the NBA that know that they're going to be in the playoffs take games off and take stretches off during the NBA season. I'm not saying that's right, but the Nuggets are going through it right now. But they're not the only team, they're not the only contending team that deals with this.
The Boston Celtics were not staring at one game to win the Eastern Conference for the first time ever. I understand what you're saying and what Jake's saying, and Jake wants to get in. I get it. But let me tell you, that was not the middle of 3 games in 4 nights. That is a rested team playing all their starters with just something very significant for the organization and the fan base on the line. It wasn't a back-to-backer in February that meant nothing, okay? That last night was different, and they failed miserably.
But it's not one game, D-Mac. They've got the same chance again and again and again. They've got it 3 more times, or New Orleans can lose. They haven't had anything to play for a month. That's why they've looked the way they've had for a month.
Hey, listen, let me tell you, if you really believe that is soft. That is excuse making, and actually slightly, I'm sorry, Jake, I love you, but that sort of mealy-mouthed sort of comment about, oh, well, whatever, doesn't embrace the moment that was present right then and there. And that is a major problem, that you're not able to dial in when you need to. And that puts my concern meter at a 9.9 when it comes to the playoffs.
They have the switch. They know how to flip it. They've been good against every single good team that they've played over the last month. They've punted games. The problem was last night it appeared they actually tried, and they ended up losing. But Nikola Jokic was rusty, coming off a 3-game injury. It didn't seem like the guys were that motivated, and they've afforded themselves this opportunity. As Mike mentions, the NBA regular season is too long. They just signed a CBA that extends the NBA regular season. It doesn't make much sense, but I'll give you this stat on my way out here. The Golden State Warriors, post All-Star break, had the worst record among playoff teams last year, and they ended up winning the thing.
Jake?
Historically, February, March, and April records are not indicative of what teams do in the playoffs, and I don't have concerns larger picture with this team. My concerns are KCP's got to hit some more threes. Aaron Gordon starting to look himself again. Like, they're minutia details. The rotation without Zeke Naji got to figure itself out. As far as losing to the Houston Rockets, guess what? You don't play teams under 500 in the playoffs. I'm not worried about it.
Well, that's wonderful, but I've flipped a switch, and I am feeling if really we are seriously making those kind of excuses, cool. You better get to the Western Conference Finals, Michael Malone, or you really should be gone. And I like Michael Malone, but if we are really seriously using those all as excuses, then okay, you better produce when it matters most. And that comes after 3 games and a week off. So Jokic is not going to play. You understand that, right, guys? He's going to have significant days off before the playoff series start. So I don't want to hear about him being rusty. I cannot even believe I'm saying this. What a day for James Marilat. Michael Malone better be on his P's and Q's, or he should be dismissed if they don't get to a certain place. Because if you just can't get it done and finish the right way in the regular season when you should, then if you can't produce in the playoffs, let's try something new. And I'm not joking about that. That's how bad that loss was last night.
Let me give it a little context to what Jake just said about maybe these games in April, March, they don't matter as much. Here's a great stat for you. If you go back over the last 10 years, NBA champions, they all have one statistic in common. They all reached their 40th win before they got their 20th loss of that season. Last 10, at least going back, last 10 champions. This year, 3 teams in the NBA got to their 40th win before their 20th loss. The Boston Celtics, the Milwaukee Bucks, and the Denver Nuggets. So according to that formula, there's only 3 teams that are capable of winning the championship this year. The Nuggets are one of them.
Oh, hey, boy, you guys with the excuses. Okay, then we better see it.
Well, it's a fact,
Then,
D-Mac.
all
It's
right,
not an
fine.
excuse. I just gave you a fact, okay?
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, I'll give you a fact. If that's the case with champion teams, you best become a champion team. And the heat now, as far as I'm concerned, is totally on. Because I really don't care about historical data and statistics when it comes to one game last night. One game. One. I mean, embrace the freaking moment. I mean, take charge. And they destroyed the Rockets the last time they were in Houston, okay? That was embarrassing. And it was juxtaposed with the Avalanche that looked like it was going to be a blowout, 2-0, and then 3-1, okay? Listen, they got back into it, but it's because their goalie, Hakamanamanamanamana, stood on his head, okay? That was great. But what happened? You had huge saves by Georgiev in overtime, and you had their best player, Nathan MacKinnon, collect 3 points, set a season-long career record, and score the game winner. That's some heart and soul. That's a team you can get behind. And I know, Mike, you already wrote that the team to have the more faith in is the Avalanche. You know, I was going back and forth this whole year. I think you lucked into it a little bit, Michael, but you got it right eventually. And I am blown away, disheartened by what I saw from the Nuggets. Blown away. They have an opportunity on Thursday on national TV to not humiliate themselves. They should go for it. I mean, what team are you? I mean, seriously, who are you guys? And I hope to see something on Thursday night. They've been sleepwalking since the gun game against the Memphis Grizzlies with John Morant, which was a big win. And I really thought they had pulled it together. I guess, you know what? As valuable as Nikola Jokic is, I guess so equally valuable as Jamal Murray, especially in the fourth quarter. That's when they fell apart. That's when Jamal plays best. They were lost without Jamal Murray yesterday.
First of all, I don't think there's anything better than D-Max saying Michael to you, Mike, because it's just an incredible moment every single time. And we get it at least once every single week you're on here.
The only people that call me Michael, Darren McKee and my mother. That's it.
Not even the wife.
Not even the wife.
What is the middle name?
My middle name?
Yeah.
I don't know if I want to give it to you because then you'll really pull out the heavy ammo and it'll be like Michael Charles Evans. Oops, I just gave it to you. Oops.
It's so good. I think that's most frustrating with the Nuggets is that they've never been in this position, and we just feel like we're on a roller coaster. We're sort of like, okay, prove it that you can be in this position. And then when they let you down, it's like, okay, well, I don't know if I can trust you going into the playoffs. When it comes to the Avalanche on the roller coaster we're on, it's like, all right, you've been there, you've done this. I have faith in you to accomplish something. I still don't know if they're going to win the Stanley Cup Finals this year. That's the truth because of all the injuries that they're dealing with. It's a toss-up when it comes to the NHL. But for the NBA, you're like, all right, you guys have been the best team all year. You guys have been in that conversation all freaking year, but we have no trust in you to actually do it. And so I think that's where people really get emotional when it comes to talking about the Nuggets.
Well, listen, the Stanley Cup Finals, listen, there's been a clearly dominant team in the NHL this year, and that's the Boston Bruins, okay? Mm-hmm. They've had a season that is setting records left and right. I mean, seriously, it would be a gargantuan upset if the Bruins did not win the Stanley Cup this year. So I'm guaranteeing nothing. The Nuggets are different. They have been a leader in terms of the top team, though basically since December, okay, which is the vast majority of the NBA season. It's been them, the Sixers, the Celtics, and the Bucks. The end. There really hasn't been another Western Conference team, although look at Memphis. You know, they got through 8 days without Ja, and they're 2 games behind. I mean, yeah, I get it. It'll be a stretch with 3 games to go if they can top the Nuggets, and the Nuggets do have the tiebreaker against the Grizzlies. That's true, too. So, and I know the Nuggets thought that, but just finish the freaking deal, man. I mean, just finish it. in one game last night. So my expectations for the Nuggets are actually higher than for the Avalanche. I think they have less excuses. They have the MVP, I thought. They have the most competitive spirit. They've beaten the Sixers and the Bucks recently at home. They beat Golden State at home. And you throw out a turd like that, the things that the Avalanche are doing without being at full strength are far more remarkable at this point than what a dominant team does dominant things. So, listen, man, I don't know if the Avalanche are going to win the Stanley Cup Finals. You have to overcome some massive obstacles, including a team that is, undoubtedly better than everybody else. That is not the truth of the Nuggets. Man, if they don't get there, if they don't get to the Western Conference Finals, this season is a freaking disaster.
But D-Mac, amazing how much and how quickly we forget, because while we're talking about this amazing trust that we have in the Avalanche, go back 1 year ago to this point. We didn't have that kind of trust yet in the Avs, and the Avs arguably were putting together a more dominant start-to-finish regular season than the Nuggets had been putting together up until now, and yet hanging over that Avalanche team the entire season was, yeah, you're having this kind of regular season, but can you get past the second round? Is this the year you get past the second round hurdle? We were talking at this point about Jared Bednar being fired if they didn't get at least past the second round. Let's not rewrite history. That's what was happening a year ago.
That wasn't my conversation. I didn't have those same doubts about the Avalanche or Bednar. I just didn't feel like that. But I'm not saying other people may not have. Jared Bednar was
You were in the minority then. You were in the minority because there was a lot of – and the Avs even admitted it. The Avs even admitted it after the fact that while they were going through the playoffs, getting past the second round was a hurdle. Bednar acknowledged that he knew he was perhaps on the chopping block if they didn't get that far. They freely embraced it as the playoffs went along. Let's not forget that. So, yeah, we trust the Avs now. We didn't trust them a year ago, so just keep that in mind while we're talking about where we are with the Nuggets right now.
Well, where's your concern meter, Rachel? Mike, where are you guys? Michael, Charles, Rachel, Elizabeth would be a middle name, though, for Rachel, wouldn't it? Rachel Elizabeth B. Hill.
It's not it, though.
Am I close?
I'll give you a hint.
Yeah.
It starts with an N.
An N.
An N.
An N.
Rachel Nuna V. Hill.
I don't know what you said. What did you say, D-Mac?
Nuna.
No.
Natasha.
Nope.
Oh, that's a good one. Natasha?
Not that.
Naughty. Rachel Naughty V. Hill.
Not that one.
No. Okay.
I'm out.
No. Like Jodie Foster. No. I can't do Nell impressions. That's not politically correct.
Nope. Oh, one person in the comments got it correct.
Who? What?
Lawrence got it correct. Nicole.
Oh, that's
Nicole.
a good one.
Okay. All right.
Rachel Nicole V. Hill. What can I say?
All right.
Was another guy?
Michael Charles Evans. Rachel Nicole V. Hill.
Darren what McKee?
The Hammer.
It's got to be like Patrick, right? Like
Darren.
You're close.
Close.
So it starts with P?
It's something Irish.
Of course it is.
McGillicuddy?
What's my dad's name?
Peter.
Darren Peter McKee. Oh, I love it, actually.
McKee.
I'm so glad we all got closer on this. Now we can all scream
right.
at each other with middle names moving forward. I'll bring out the popcorn next time for it. Where's my concern level with the Nuggets or the Avalanche, D-Mac? Repeat.
Nuggets.
It's like a 60%. We've just been on this roller coaster, so we keep going like this all the time with the Nuggets. Like I said, I don't have any trust that they're going to do it. I think if they don't make it to the Western Conference Finals, you have to fire Malone because you just wasted all of Jokic's prime years, and how many more do we have left?
5.
But I'm not on complete, I think that this whole thing is going to blow up in their face because they lost to the Houston Rockets, but it does pique a little bit of a concern level of where are these players and where's the leadership in the locker room that's holding them all accountable, because it can't be Michael Malone, like Mike said.
Go back and watch what Bednar said after that game last night and what Michael Malone said after the game last night. Just go back and do that. I wrote about it at denversports.com. It was a hell of a contrast, and that's why I'm at a 9.9. You got a coach. You got a coach with the Nuggets who said if we play like that, we'll be out in the first round. And you got a coach with Jared Bednar who said how proud he was of his guys, and he has no doubts that he'll get Miko to his goal and all that sort of stuff. I mean, it's. Do you know the Avalanche took all of their injured players and their staff on this trip because they had a day off today, and they're having a bonding exercise to just make sure everybody's together. Well, the Nuggets had a bonding exercise too. They went to the national championship game as they were in Houston. Colin Gillespie got to hug his coach Jay Wright, who was on the broadcast as a national champion. So the reward after their bonding exercise is to throw out the biggest stinker. I mean, that just comes across as entitled, spoiled brats. That's how that comes across. Like, we've already done it. It's already over. And that's how they played. So they bonded by playing like total garbage. Meanwhile, the Avalanche they're earning their rounds of golf. That being said, there was a earthquake in San Jose yesterday. And, hopefully everything's all right on the golf courses. But it sounds like maybe they're headed down to Pebble Beach today, frankly. I mean, that's what I would do if I was rich and I had a day off in Northern California and I like golf. Maybe they got something set up down there. It's not that far away. But they've earned it, and the Nuggets think they've earned it. They think they've earned it.
Mike, real quick before I let you talk. 1 second. I did just put a poll if you're watching on YouTube. What's your concern level with the Nuggets? I'm curious. Go ahead. Go over there and answer it on our YouTube page. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, my concern is high. The only thing that I think tempers it a little bit is because I do think you have to look in context of the way the rest of the NBA is and how teams approach games and approach the regular season. That's, I think, the one saving grace that I have for the Nuggets, why I'm not completely freaked out. But in answer to DMAC, you're right. The coach's messages couldn't be more different, but I think it speaks volumes. Throughout this entire season, Jared Bednar has never had to really feel like he had to come out and rip his team. Why? He knows his team. He knows he's got good leadership. He knows that this is a room that sort of can police itself. When Michael Malone, and this isn't the first time he's had to call his team out for being soft, when he does it, I think it tells you a lot. It tells you that he knows his team well, too. He knows his team very well. And he knows his team does not have a lot of self-starters. They do not police themselves as well. They do not have the kind of individual team leaders that the Avalanche have, that Jared Bednar knows he has. So I think what you see and what you hear from Michael Malone is an understanding, I have to ride these guys hard. I have to call them out. I have to challenge their manhood because, unfortunately, this is who they are. I think deep down, Michael Malone knows this is this team's fatal flaw, but at this point, he has no choice. His job's on the line.
Yeah, well, listen, Mike, just to be clear, after the Minnesota game at home, he said there were too many passengers. So he was very direct with the team just a couple days ago before the Dallas.
He didn't label the whole team soft, though. He never has come out and said, our team is soft, and done it repeatedly throughout the season.
It wasn't the top guys. He said it was other guys on the team. That is true. But it's not like Bednar has not been critical when it's been called for. So
he's never gone full Malone. He's never gone full Malone. And if he's done it maybe once or twice. Malone has done it on at least what? You followed him every step of the way, at least half a dozen times this year.
I think Bednar's probably done it 3 times, and Malone's probably done it 5 or 6.
And George Karl once said, you can play that card, where you come out and just rip your team publicly. He says you can do it about 4 times a year. Malone's had to do it more than 4 times. What does that tell you?
It's tough. I told you my concern meter's a 9.9. What can I tell you? I mean, no matter how much he's urging them, so you're making an anti-Malone, they tuned him out. And I think that might be the case. And I think they're paying attention to Bednar, and I think they're tuning out Malone. And maybe that's not Malone's fault. Maybe the players need to be better. But why was George Karl eventually fired, Mike? George Karl was fired the year he won Coach of the Year. But the message it wasn't, maybe it's not even George's fault. but they had only made it past the first round once in 9 years, and the players had tuned it out. They had just tuned it out. So again, I guess I'm siding with James Merilatt here. I mean, if maybe you are a great coach, but if they've tuned you out after 8 or 9 years, and you've got the MVP, you just can't sit around and deal with it. And if the players care, I'll tell you this: if those Nuggets players care at all about Michael Malone, they better get their together, because Michael Malone said they did a job, a poor job last night, and he was right.
Sheesh. A sheesh job for sure.
A sheesh poor job.
Sheesh. Okay. We can talk about this all day, to be completely honest. Hopefully tomorrow we see better results if they play the Suns. But let's talk about the Denver Broncos, because John Elway, he's out. He's done. His contract was expiring as a consultant. They are not planning to bring him back, although he will be a resource if anyone in the building, I'm assuming, ever needs him. How surprising does this news come to both of you, and where does John Elway stand on being a quote-unquote legend in your head? Mike?
Well, let's start with the fact that John Elway put Denver, Colorado on the map. As a guy who grew up back east, okay, the only time I knew anything about Colorado was when some of my rich classmates would go off during winter break and come back with a steamboat or a Vail little ski patch on their jacket or their little backpack, okay? That's all I knew about Denver, Colorado until John Elway came along. So John Elway literally, for most people around the country, put Denver, Colorado on the map. That's a heck of a legacy, okay, to put a place, a city, a state, a region on the map. As far as legacy, look, legacy is something that when 50 years have gone by, when somebody's name is brought up, you think of this. And John Elway's legacy is so secure in that regard, okay? But if you're living in the moment right now and you're really diving into John Elway, you can't help but look at the last 5 years that he was in charge of this football team and realize it was an unmitigated disaster. I mean, even now, a couple years removed from Elway being in control, his fingerprints are all over what still is the mess that is the Denver Broncos. So that cannot be ignored. I know when we talk about John Elway, everybody wants to make it rainbows and kittens. But the fact remains is that he was awful in the second half of his run as a GM. He was great the first half, but he was awful the second half. That cannot be overlooked. But as far as him walking away, hey, look, we know, anybody who follows this team knows he hasn't had a real active role on this team for the last couple of years. Somebody might want to alert Colin Cowherd, because for the last couple of years, Cowherd's been insisting that John Elway still is calling the shots, which has been the furthest thing from the truth.
No, I got some details about how things really did wind down. And it's actually a little bit sad, to be honest with you. John has had nothing to do with any major decision for 2 years. And last year was humbling, to say the least. It's weird, you know, and I actually give John a little bit of credit. I think he could have kept this bogus consulting role going for years and years and years. So I was surprised by the news, because he could have gravy trained this consultant thing for a long time. He was the one that went to Greg Penner a couple of weeks ago and just said, you know, Greg, it's this really isn't happening anymore. And Greg Penner, I think, has chosen sides between John Elway and Peyton Manning. And I think the person he listens to consult with is Peyton Manning, not John Elway. This moment to me was defined in training camp when the Walton Penner group came they owned the team. It was the big day that they were all walking around. And it was no coincidence that Peyton Manning happened to show up for training camp that day as John Elway was on the field. And if you notice what happens, there are two different fields. Well, Elway was watching some of the action on one field, and Manning was near the radio booth in the family section. They weren't together. And when the Walter Penner group was walking around, Elway didn't walk around with them as they met up with Peyton Manning. Why wasn't Elway walking arm in arm with Gregors and Carey and Condi and everybody else to meet Peyton Manning? They met up with Peyton Manning and they chatted with him for quite a bit, and then they walked away, and Manning was standing there like, now what do I do? So instead of just walking to where John Elway was on the opposite 30-yard line, he called Brandon Stokely basically to save him, because now he's standing out in the field by himself. Seriously, he was looking for a pal. Brandon wasn't located nearby. Manning did walk to the field to pretend like there was another reason for him being there aside from meeting the Walton Penner group, but he walked to the opposite 30-yard line of John Elway. And I do think that's symbolic of how Elway was basically treated by the Walton Penner group. With respect, but not in the same class as Peyton Manning. I think John realized it, and I think that's why he eventually tapped out. Because, guys, sadly, nobody was asking for his opinion on anything. Not only did he have nothing to do, Mike, with the organization, nobody cared what he thought.
Well,
and that's how kind of weirdly and sadly the era of Elway ends. And I do think all in all, you've got to remember the whole 40 years. That's why I suggested a statue of Elway as a young California kid with the hair down here. That's one statue. In the middle is the helicopter move. That was in the later stages of his career when he finally won. And the final stage is as an executive with a suit and tie. I could see the 3 stages of Elway being honored outside of whatever field they play at from here to eternity, just like there's a statue of Pat Bowlen. So, Mike and Rachel, I think there's 3 significant sections of the age of Elway. And, Mike, you are right. You are right. The final act was not great. It was not. And I guess it's up to whoever you are when you want to look at 40 years, how you define that 40 years, because the last 7 sucked, but the 33 years previous were pretty damn good.
And honestly, that'll go down as a blip. It really would. It's like Michael Jordan stumbling around for the Washington Wizards at the end of his career. Nobody's ever going to remember that. That's not what you're going to think about when you think about Michael. Same thing when it comes to John. I will say this about the Walton Penner group. Look, they came in here just blissfully ignorant as to the world that they were entering. And I'll forgive them for the fact that they probably didn't really understand who John Elway has been around here for the last 40 years. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt that as they get further acclimated into owning the Broncos, they'll get a better understanding and maybe a new appreciation and a new respect for Elway. But if I'm a bunch of new NFL owners with not a whole lot of NFL experience under my belt, and I look out on the field, and John Elway's over there, and Peyton Manning's over there, and there's Peyton Manning, who I see on every other commercial and doing the Manning cast, who am I going to gravitate to? Absolutely, I'm going to gravitate to Peyton Manning. I think it makes a lot of sense. I don't think it was a real diss of John. I think it was just probably a case of inexperienced new owners not really knowing, but I'm confident that as they settle in as owners, they'll come to appreciate the legend of Elway, and he'll be, welcome back into the circle, as you will.
Just really quick, I think the concept of like Elway with a T-shirt gun throwing out souvenirs at a game is kind of silly, but that's what it's kind of morphed into. The only thing he can serve this organization anymore is as an ambassador, and I'm sure he'll be welcomed back, but not in a role more so than Mark Randall is for the Nuggets, unfortunately. And that is kind of sad. I do think the Walton Penner group, I'll agree with you, Mike. I think their experience with Elway is more about the now than the past. I don't think they have an appreciation of the past, but I do think they had an appreciation of the last 5 years. I do think when they did their dive into the Broncos and what they were getting into, there was more fault to be placed at the hands of John Elway. And I think that's why they regard Peyton Manning in higher esteem than Elway. So while we can all look at a longer expansive time, I think the way John Elway's career ends with the Broncos actually is defined by his final 5 years as general manager, not the previous years. I think that did catch up to him.
And I actually have to agree. I never want to play the age card here, but I don't obviously remember John Elway's playing days at all, but I understand, the incredible and how he would put up Denver on the map and everything. But that doesn't mean anything to me. So what I remember is the past 7 years that were absolutely terrible, and you were questioning everything. And I feel kind of guilty saying this, but and that you knew he was intoxicated quite often and he was on the scooter and doing crazy things, and those are the moments that stick out in my head when it comes to John Elway. So what are those moments? What am I going to pass down to my kids about John Elway? it's going to be probably more of those moments, less than the good moments, right? And that's where it kind of gets tricky because I understand the value that he brought to Denver, but that doesn't mean that those memories pop up in my head more than the bad ones do. And so I think it kind of comes down to, was he a legend? Was he a failure? Like, where does he fit into that mix? And it's kind of weird.
Okay. In terms of being a general manager, in my opinion, John Elway was the Tim Tebow of general managers. There was enough good stuff to say he was great. There was enough bad stuff to say he was terrible.
Mm-hmm.
However, John Elway was the John Elway of quarterbacks, okay? And I don't think I can put higher praise on it. As a player, John Elway was freaking John Elway. And that deserves a significant amount of respect. When you are the defining character of comparables, you yourself are that. Like Michael Jordan is Michael Jordan. John Elway is John Elway, but not as a general manager. He was the Tim Tebow of general managers, and that is not a compliment, but he was the John Elway of quarterbacks.
Who was better? And I know this is different playing times, but John Elway or Tom Brady?
Nobody was really like, Tom Brady wasn't like John Elway. John Elway had a stronger arm. He was a tougher guy. The league was much more physical towards quarterbacks back then. It was, Rachel, it was a serious different era. I mean, if you're asking me who would I rather have the ball with less than 2 minutes to go down a score, I'd take John Elway actually over Tom Brady. Mike?
I would say this, and Rachel, I'm not going to let you off the hook because while you're right, you don't have those, I was there when it happened, memories of John. You do have access to YouTube, and you can go up and you can look at highlights. And let me tell you something. Start looking at John Elway highlights, and you will see a guy do things that nobody in today's NFL can do like what John Elway did. Josh Allen has some of that element of Elway, but ain't on the Elway level. The thing about Elway was, and this is where I'd put him ahead of Brady, Elway could drag a team on his own farther than they had any business to go. And he did that repeatedly in the AFC when he would push, pull, drag Denver Bronco teams further than they had any business going until they would get to the Super Bowl and get their heads kicked in by a better team from the NFC. But if you're talking about one of the few quarterbacks that have ever played in this game that could really lift a team on his shoulders and carry them, you won't find many that could do it like Elway could.
And I've seen the highlights too, so like don't get me wrong. Like I understand that. Like I don't have that like emotional connection to it, which makes it hard. And I know a lot of people like of my age don't. So that's where like the legacy conversation I feel like can carry on, because in 50 years when we're all talking about it, like what are we gonna say to our kids? And then that's what carries on. But why I bring up like John Elway versus Tom Brady is because when you talk about Michael Jordan, you are talking about the GOAT, the greatest of all time. And I know that conversation can be in there when it comes to LeBron James, whoever you want to put. But like John Elway's not there like in that conversation for me 100%. Like he's not in the top 3 for me. So where does he fit in the top? Let's do the top 5 quarterbacks of all time for you guys. Mike, you go first.
Boy, let's see. If I had to go just on what I saw, I would go Brady number 1. I'd go Montana number 2.
No.
I would go Manning number 3.
2.
I would go Dan Marino, honestly, number 4. Dan Marino was an absolute witch. And then I'd go Elway number 5.
All right. I mean, you can't put somebody who never won a Super Bowl in the top 5, Mike. I mean, now we're talking legacy. We're not talking draft stuff. We're talking.
I know, but I'm just talking about what I saw. But I hear you. As
much as I love Jim Kelly, and I love Jim Kelly, I can't put him on the same. I can certainly put Jim Kelly ahead of Dan Marino, though, because they both played in the AFC at the same time, and Kelly dominated Marino in terms of winning. Come on now, if we're going to be fair, right?
He had a much better team, but okay, that's fine.
Well, whatever. I mean, not always did he have a better team, but that being said, it's Brady number 1 because winning matters more than anything in terms of legacy. I think I'd put John Elway number 2. I seriously would.
All
I
right,
mean,
now you're sucking up. Now you're sucking up to the home audience.
well, he went to 5 Super Bowls, won 2 later in his career. Joe Montana, that's a quirky one, man. Like, where do Montana and Terry Bradshaw fit in these type of conversations, both with 4 Super Bowls? And then I just go flat out Josh Allen.
Where is Josh Rosen in this?
Deeper.
Is he? He's honorable mention. Honorable mention.
Deeper, yes. Much deeper.
It's a super fascinating conversation.
But
and
you know what's crazy? You know what's crazy? Now, forget about all the banter we've had back and forth, Mike, okay? Just forget about that for a second. I heard Mark this morning. It was pretty funny, and it organically happened. The Paxton Lynch, trashing. Such an epically bad decision, and he could have righted the ship in 2018. He really could have. And had John Elway, had he drafted Josh Allen, forget about everything I've said, but had he drafted Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, his legacy as a president and GM would have been so much different. I mean, Mike, he was that close. He really was that close.
But you know what? I do think the failure that was Paxton Lynch, and this is why Paxton Lynch's impact and failure just knows no limits, is because not only was he a failure for himself, but I think he spooked John Elway. He spooked the Broncos when it came to Josh Allen, because let's not kid ourselves. We vetted Josh Allen extensively before that draft, and there was that same sense of boom or bust with Allen that existed with Paxton Lynch. And, you know, big quarterback, tall, athletic, big arm, mid-major school, all that stuff. And because Paxton Lynch was the unmitigated disaster that he was, I think it made John Elway gun-shy.
The problem, too, is that Elway, not only as a football evaluator, stunk in terms of quarterbacks, he stunk in terms of evaluating other football evaluators. And the hiring of George Payton was what he was comfortable with, because George Payton kind of acquiesced to Elway, and that's the exact opposite of what the Broncos needed. They needed a fresh set of eyes, so it should not be a surprise that Elway hired a guy that he liked, who ended up making the same exact mistake that John Elway made in 2018 and 2021. And not only did he get it wrong with a corner over a quarterback, he didn't even get a pass rusher. I mean, at least John Elway tried to get a pass rusher with Bradley Chubb. George Payton couldn't even figure that out because he slept on Micah Parsons. So it's not bad enough that you just don't get a quarterback, but you don't even evaluate a pass rusher's value compared to a cornerback.
I don't want to go into the weeds with you on this one. I will concede that John definitely missed the boat on Josh Allen. We are still to be determined with how much George Payton missed the boat, but I'll give you half of it. All right?
Time out. I'm not even talking about quarterbacks. You think Patrick Surtain is a better, more valuable player than Micah Parsons?
Oh, well, if we're talking about Surtain versus Parsons, fine. Yeah. We'll have that discussion. Fine.
Well, I'm with you on that.
Okay, well, all right. I thought you were
going. By the way,
I thought we were going down the Justin Fields road again here.
No, I just said Michael Parsons.
Okay.
Michael Carter, whatever. What's your name?
Listen,
so,
Darren McKee. I hear you. Okay.
But real quick, it's not just Micah Parsons. It's also Rashawn Slater. So I just want to be clear. You think a cornerback is more valuable, Micah Parsons, a pass rusher, and a starting generational right tackle? You think a cornerback is more valuable than those two positions?
I will give you those points. I would rather take the tackle or the pass rusher.
Thank you.
Well, that's the first. This is literally the first time, Darren O'Shea McKee, that we've ever had this discussion. Okay.
All right, Mike, we kept you way longer than I told you. I appreciate you taking the full hour out with us. I will let you go now. Get on with the rest of your day, because D-Mac and I get to talk about the Rockies for a few minutes, so we'll save you that.
Always fun, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Mike Evans right there. All right, D-Mac, if you know when it comes down to the Rockies. I saw what you did last night. I was impressed, and I loved the people in the comments who didn't get it, but I got it.
Okay, I'm going to keep it going because it's fun now. So this is really just a insider joke coffee break thing. And here's what I'll do all year. I will never respond to any other comments under tweets that I put out like that. Okay? So this will be an inside joke for everybody in Coffee Break only. And we are going to get some beauties because people are just not going to get it. It's like, you know, when I joke was it over when the Germans bombed Pearl Harbor, which is a classic movie line from the movie Animal House. Yep. Of course, the Germans didn't bomb Pearl Harbor. But every time I say it on the air, I go, hey, you know, everybody's upset. It's a movie line, y'all. Yep. So it's an inside joke. So if you're watching Coffee Break right now, it's just for you. Yep. The reaction was priceless from people who didn't get the joke. I thought I did it well. I said, despite losing their 4th game in a row, I'm really proud they loaded the bases and got 1 run in the bottom of the 9th. Right? I mean, that's the spirit of the concept, right? Right?
It's so good. It is so good. I love it too. Definitely keep it going. It made me laugh. I loved everybody who sent it to me in the DMs too. And I even saw some comments on it being like, the responses to this for people that don't get it are hilarious. So I love it.
For the past couple of years, I've just said, Rocks lose, ... bummer, which is very condescending, you know, and that was my little shtick. But I'll stick with, I know the Rockies stink, but... So
good.
You know, it's funny. We had a crazy day yesterday. We had a sports NATO. We had the Rockies, Avs, and Nuggets all playing at the exact same time. Yep. Well, today is the Oasis. Or not the Oasis, it's the Mojave Desert. There's nothing going on. Like, none of the 3 teams play. But then tomorrow, all 3 of them play again. Not at the exact same. That was crazy last night. Because they really were playing at one point all at the same exact time. Yep. So that's not going to be the case. It's a little bit more spread out. But we do have opening day. And there's your Rockies, Rachel. Coming into opening day on a 4-game losing streak. At 2-4, James Maryland did have a great question. When the Rockies lost to the Dodgers the first game and they were 2-3, he was like, will they ever reach 500 again? I'm not sure, Rachel. I don't know. We got the Nationals here. Who knows with them? So, I mean, maybe they can win a couple games here. I really don't know. But so quickly, whatever hope happened in those first 2 games gets washed away with a 4-game losing streak. Meanwhile, CJ Cron won the National League Player of the Week.
I saw that. Looky there, a positive on the Rockies. You know what we should also do to everybody who's tuning in? If you see D-Mac's tweet with, I know the Rockies stink, but just go put the coffee cup emoji underneath it. That is so funny. People will be so confused. I love it. I promise I'll go like all of them. I think it'll be hilarious. It's going to be our inside joke here, and I think it's great.
It'll be our inside Rockies joke. I'll find something good in every game. You know, I'll be like, hey, that was amazing how Ryan McMahon worked an 0-2 count into a walk. You know, that stuff. So there's got to be something. There's got to be something good every day. And in all honesty, Rockies, you get what you deserve, okay? You 100%. Get what you deserve. If you want us to take you more seriously and you want to really not be mocked like this, and they'll hate it, of course, but you got to do better. You got to do better. And that's the bottom line. That's the standard we're going to hold you to. And if you don't like it, do something about it. Simple as that.
Hashtag Nuggets also in this conversation. You know that's what you're going to get. Do better.
Rachel, if they lose in the first round.
Oh, boy.
I still don't think they will. But, man, last night was so disappointing. I mean, I just was like angry, you know, about it. I really was. And they were only down, Rachel, they were only down 1 point going into the 4th quarter. Mm-hmm. They lost, Rachel, the 4th quarter by 20 points.
Yep.
How the hell do you lose to the Rockets by 20 points in 1 quarter, never mind the 4th quarter? I mean, how the hell does that happen?
It hurt. And maybe that's why I fell asleep so early last night, because I exerted too much energy into that game, because I'm with you. I was pissed. But everybody in the comments, we appreciate you. Drop some coffee cups on DMAC's tweet and in the comments, and we'll say goodbye here. We'll be back tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. for a special edition of Coffee Break. You're definitely going to want to tune in, and we will see you guys all then. Have a wonderful Wednesday, everybody. Bye.